Did Sony really fix the local dimming issue when enabling VRR? I'll tell you right off the bat. If Sony didn't fix this issue, I will take back the X95K in a heartbeat. What's going on, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to be covering the X95K gameplay video. This is where I'm going to show where local dimming is being disabled versus local dimming being enabled using the HDMI signal format for VRR Enhance versus Enhance with 4K 120. But first, if you could do me a favor by hitting that like button and that subscribe button, I greatly appreciate it. So before I go ahead and go into gameplay, I want to go ahead and show the settings. So the first thing I'm going to do is show the HDMI 3 using eARC. That's why I have my PlayStation 5 hooked up to the Yamaha RX888. And I have it on enhanced format VRR. So I'm going to do the first test with format with the VRR enabled, and then I'm going to do another comparison as well with just the enhanced format. That will be the 4K 120 with the VRR disabled. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and show is the PlayStation settings. So I'm about to go ahead and switch that over just to show that everything is enabled with VRR and then ALLM. So for HDMI, you can see that the ALLM is enabled. And I'm about to go ahead and switch to display. Once you see display, you can see VRR is enabled. You can see that's automatic on there. So this is showing that 4K 120 with VRR enabled on the PlayStation 5. So one of the first games I'm going to go ahead and show is Final Fantasy Remake. I think that would be a good candidate to show local dimming off. So the first thing that I'm going to show is Final Fantasy Remake on the PlayStation 5. And this one is with VRR Enhance Enable on the HDMI 3. So I'm going to be going ahead and toggling between the off auto local dimming and low, medium, and high. If you look at it being off, you can see that the black screen with the logo is gray compared to if you look at low. On the other hand, you'll see that it start to function with the local dimming start to get enabled, and then I switch from medium to high. You can see how the settings were to get better with the picture being totally black with the Final Fantasy logo. So this is just one idea with VR enable and enhance. So here's the main menu of Final Fantasy. So right now I have local dimming off. You can see that the screen is gray. Switching to low, medium, and high, you can see how the gray will start to turn to black. Now I'm about to go ahead and switch into gameplay. So right now I have auto local dimming at high. This is kind of like my preference when I'm playing video games. So to each his own. But if I go ahead and switch to medium, low, and even off, you do start to see a little bit of difference when it comes to picture quality wise. So it's kind of hard to really see it on this particular game. But if you see local dimming off, you can see that the game is starting to wash out quite a bit compared to when it's on, and putting it from low, medium, and high. You will see a difference when the auto local dimming is off compared to low, medium, and high when you have enhanced VRR enabled on the HDMI signal format. So that's just something that just to keep in mind. I know that the previous firmware update, local dimming was disabled for all Sony LED TVs from 2021 to 2022, but now since Sony has made an update, the local dimming is enabled and it seems to be working. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and switch over to Spider-Man Miles Morales. And this one I am going to show with local dimming being off, low, medium, high settings. So this one is going to be a little bit challenging because it was kind of hard to really show on the screen or the camera the local dimming being disabled, but from my viewpoint, the image was definitely washed out compared to when local dimming was enabled when I have the HDMI enhanced VRR. So for me, looking at medium and high settings, the difference with the high settings, I did see that the blacks are a lot more inkier compared to the medium setting. But at the same time, too, with the local dimming being at medium, you are missing a little bit of that specular highlight. But it all comes down to preference for me. I like it being at high, just because I like to have more of those inkier black levels. But once again, it all comes down to preference. So you can see right here, I am trying to switch up the settings between high and medium. Probably won't be able to see it that much on this video, but you would be able to see when the local dimming is off. You see the screen will get a little bit darker, but also too, you can see that the screen is a lot more gray and washed out when it comes to the color representation. So those are kind of like the things to think about with this TV. And so far on the Sony X95K, I am impressed with what they could do, what they did to this TV so far, especially when it comes to gaming. So what I'm about to go ahead and do is switch it to Deathloop on Xbox Series X. So I went ahead and took off local dimming off, and looking at this one particular part of the game, this is the beginning of the game, you see a difference when it comes to gameplay when local dimming is disabled. So on this portion of it, and this one is for VRR enabled, if you take local dimming off, you can see how the image is washed out compared to all the other settings. The next game I'm going to show is Mortal Kombat. I think this is going to be the best representation. If you take off local dimming, and you can see how the picture will start to gray out greatly, especially it'll look washed out if I disable local dimming when it comes to this. So once the logo comes on, you'll see a little bit more that the blacks will start to turn to gray and the image will start to wash out a lot more. So if you look at the logo, I'm about to go ahead and switch it from medium, low, and off. You can see how the picture is washed out with the local dimming being disabled. Here's switching to medium and then high. You can see how the colors will start to look better. Here's another good screen. You can see a lot of clouding with local dimming being disabled. So this is one part where I had to pause the game just to kind of give a better representation that's showing that the X95K local dimming does work for gameplay. So you can see that I'm going through the settings, and if I disable it, you can see pretty much all the clouding on there. So Sony did do a good job, especially once you enable that local dimming. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is show a little bit of the gameplay and showing the differences between each other. So I start the game off with local dimming disabled. Now I switch it to low, medium, and high. With local dimming being off, you can see that the image is washed out, which is the game looks terrible when the local dimming is disabled. And you can see here that if you look at where Scorpio is located at, you can see, especially in the background, how washed out and gray the picture is compared to when local dimming is enabled. And this is pretty much the whole gameplay with local dimming being disabled. It just looks terrible. But if you switch it to high, on the other hand, or medium, then you can see that it'll start to retain its color. You can see that there's a drastic difference when it comes to picture quality. So the next portion that I'm about to go ahead and show is switching the HDMI signal from enhanced VRR to just enhanced. If you switch it to enhanced, you only will be able to get 4K 120 and not VRR. So right off the bat, I will let everybody know when you switch it to enhanced formats with just a 4K 120. When I was playing games specifically, I noticed a difference with VR disabled, of course, because it's supposed to help with screen tearing. So besides that, when it comes to the local dimming situation, I did not notice a difference when it comes to picture quality. So specifically when it comes to the local dimming being disabled, low, medium, and high, the picture looked the same, except for, of course, the screen tearing when it comes to certain games specifically. But it's kind of hard to really capture that portion of it on camera. But I noticed when I was playing Spider-Man or if I was playing Assassin's Creed, those are kind of like the games that I start to notice screen tearing. So I know VR helped a lot in that area. But when it comes to picture wise, I did not notice nothing when it comes to the differences between the enhanced and enhanced VRR besides the VRR being disabled. So as I'm going through all this tests, one thing I have realized I haven't talked about before is the blooming. And one thing that I'm looking at, especially when it comes to gaming, I haven't seen any blooming or it has been very minimum when playing games. So just like what I'm showing with Final Fantasy, I was toggling between the local dimming on and off, going through the different settings, and you can see that just like with any other screen, it looks identical to enhanced VRR when you switch to HDMI signal format. But going back to the blooming portion of it, I do not see any blooming or it's very minimum when it comes to gameplay. Now you do get the occasional blooming when you're looking at some logos in certain areas here and there, but even when I was looking at Final Fantasy when I was doing a demonstration, I didn't see blooming at all. So that's something to keep in mind with the X95K. And people mentioned about the raised black levels. I haven't seen raised black levels or notice it while playing games. And even when I'm watching content, you do see a little bit when it comes to the black bars, when the 16:9 aspect ratio, and a little bit with the IMAX enhanced ratio. But when you're watching content, you really don't notice it. But going back into gaming, there's one thing I gotta stress when it comes to HDMI signal format. I do not see a difference between enhanced 4K 120 and enhanced VRR. The only difference is when it comes to the screen tearing, I do notice that when I'm doing gameplay. So with the local dimming being enabled for gameplay for VRR, good news for everyone who is on the sidelines or on the fence trying to figure out if they should get a Sony LED TV. Just know that it is enabled for the X95K. I can't speak to the other Sony LED TVs, but for the X95K, the gameplay when you're playing gaming, the local dimming is enabled and is not disabled at all after the firmware update. So switching to Spider-Man is the same exact footage. The only difference is that I'm using an enhanced HDMI signal for 4K 120 and toggling between both settings. Well, all the settings on the local dimming portion of it is it's the same. So the only thing besides the screen tearing. But I'm kind of curious to know what everyone's thoughts are on the X95K so far. Let me know in the comments below. If you could do me a favor by hitting that like, that subscribe button, I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I'll see everyone in the next video. Take care. Bye.